Today's podcast is brought to you by Tetra Hearing. Tetra Hearing isn't just hearing protection, it's hearing perfection. So if I point at you at some point during it, a lot of people end up falling back in their chairs.
It's comfy to sit back, but yeah.
No worries. Yeah.
We have a special guest today, Brendan Hinkle. He is with B&B Dog Training. He's also a child psychologist, but we're going to talk about, gun dogs, house dogs, etc., do's, don'ts. One of the fun things about waterfowl hunting for me is having a dog out in the field. Definitely helps you bring more game home. Absolutely. But Brendan, appreciate you coming out here today, and just tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you're doing.
Yeah, glad to do it. I'm actually a child therapist. So
I'm sorry about that.
But it's a common thing. People always call me doctor, even though I'm not necessarily a doctor. I'm an LCSW. But I've been with Kaiser Permanente for 27 years as a child therapist there in their child psychiatry department. And dog training, the hunting was something that was kind of an interesting thing because no one in my family hunted.
Okay.
And so here I was down in Milpitas, California, and didn't really know anyone who hunted or anything like that. And I always loved to shoot like the little pocket rockets back in the 80s, slingshots that everybody. I had a pretty good shot with it. And one of my friends had been bragging to another friend of mine in a biology class that I was taking. And Dave Eddy, my biology teacher in high school, he overheard us. And he said to me, "Now, is that true that you killed a robin out of a tree from 75 feet away with a slingshot?" I was like, "Yeah." And and then he embarrassed me in front of the whole class and called me a poacher and said that it was disrespectful and that I really dishonored the life of that animal by not eating it, and that I wasted it. And that kind of hit me, I admired Dave Eddy. I really liked him. And after a class, he called me aside and he said, "Hey, you really like that?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "Anybody in your family hunt?" I said, "No." He said, "Would you like to?" I said, "Yeah." So he talked with my parents, got them to agree to let me take a hunter safety course. And Dave Eddy had me throwing bumpers for his dog, Cheyenne, a black lab female, 2 years field trial champion at Los Banos. And that got me hooked. And then he took me pheasant hunting for the first time. And I knew from that moment on I was a hunter.
So first time was high school?
High school.
Okay.
Yeah. I was 16 and never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
And that was old school. There were no electronic collars back then. Yeah. It was, very different kind of training programs. Richard Walter's Water Dog was like the Bible, right? Yeah. And so different. And then as I, progressed through college, I moved up to Humboldt County and hunted ducks up there in the bay and all the lagoons and all that stuff, all the bluebill and all that. And I got a friend of mine had given me a black lab female that was a quarter German short hair pointer, a mutt basically. But what a nose. And boy, did I ever make plenty of mistakes with, and of course I named her Cheyenne after my biology teacher's dog. And made all kinds of mistakes, had a great time learning. And we hunted mountain quail up in the Trinity Alps and blue grouse and all that. And then black brant along the jetties and out in the bay and all the bluebill and all that. And I was just amazed how much that dog taught me about hunting, more than I ever taught it. And also how important it was not to be so hard, because when you're young, you tend to, want to get things done right away. And that's where I started to realize that, relationship is a big part of training a dog and getting them to work with you. And started to learn a few things, and then made all my mistakes with Cheyenne, but she still turned out to be a phenomenal hunting dog for us. It was amazing watching what she could do. There were a few times I had to tie a rope to the back of the truck and climb down a mountainside in the Trinity Alps to go retrieve her and the mountain quail that she went off the cliff for. I was like, but such drive. And then after that, I went to school, worked full time, got my master's degree in social work, and eventually through earning my hours, you have to do 3,200 continuing hours after your master's degree to become to get an opportunity to take the first licensing exam to become a licensed therapist. It's a lot of time, a lot of devotion. But throughout that whole time, always had great dogs and always had. I ended up getting a dog named Sky, and that was the first dog that I got with my fiance at the time, and that dog became our ring bearer in our wedding, and that was pretty cool. And with that dog, I also went through all kinds of training through Lend a Heart Animal Assisted Therapy program, where we would take the dog to the schools, libraries, mental health facilities, elderly care homes. And we had to go through very rigorous training, and then through Pet Partners, there's an actual certification through the state that offered some liability insurance as an animal assisted therapy dog, which allowed me to take the dog, into healthcare facilities and things like that. It's very different from what they call emotional support animals, which you can just simply buy a certificate online. And that emphasized even more the relationship between the dog and the dog's handler. Because when you're in situations, we used to go to Sacramento County Mental Health, to SHMIC, and these are people who are fluidly psychotic and things like that, and we would go on the wards and visit them with our dogs. And many of the people would not really understand how to be around a dog very well. And so my dog would often look to me. You could see kind of the nervousness or the anxiousness because this person was not acting very normally. And really being able to see that connection that I had with the dog, and that's part of the testing, is to see how well you're able to, help keep your dog calm in situations that are unusual. And it really emphasized to me that what the owner feels, your emotional state, gets passed down right to your dog. And they're looking at you as the pack leader. And so much of dog training and working with your dog is having that relationship where your dog can really feel confident and secure with you as its leader. And it will look to you for that. And that has gotten me quite a distance in the hunt test world. And after Sky had passed, he used to go to work with me every day at Stanford Home for Children, worked with all kinds of foster kids and foster homes. And he certainly made me a better therapist and built a connection between kids who had a lot of reasons not to trust people. They trusted him. And it was pretty amazing. And through that, and I would hunt with him. He was a phenomenal hunting dog. Phenomenal. So smart. And I hunted all the Northern California refuges from Tule Lake, and then used to take them down to El Centro dove hunting. And we used to hunt Los Banos, Salt Slough, Grizzly Island, Gray Lodge, Little Dry Creek, all those. And when YOLO became a thing, that was something we did too. And so a lot of time spent, public land hunting and really learning a lot about what it takes to be successful and how important it is to have an extremely well-trained dog in those public land hunting situations. I had seen way too many examples of when people did not put the time in.
Anybody that's been on the refuge system has seen that.
You hear it, the yelling, the poor dog crying, and it's like, this is not good. Yeah. But no, and it was pretty cool. Sky was very well known at Gray Lodge and Little Dry Creek, and I can remember standing in line at Little Dry Creek one time and overhearing somebody telling this story about this dog that had found, a wood duck that somebody had shot and was coming back with it. And before they even got back to their owner, the dog had already pointed out another duck in the bushes and made the retrieve with the wood duck, and then immediately jumped in the bushes and got the other duck, but had smelled the one with the other. They were talking about my Sky. Uh-huh. And that was pretty awesome. So awesome. Truly a legend, and it was really cool. But and then after that, I bought a dog from Karen Waltman of Water Spook Labrador Retrievers. She is a AKC judge. She's a breeder, and she's a trainer. And she picked the litter. And when I picked the one that I was really interested in, because of all the little temperament tests that I did for myself to see, what kind of pup I'm getting, which I do think makes a big difference if you know.
What are some of those things that, because you hear I got pick of the litter.
Yes.
I'm so excited. And, I'm not a in-depth dog trainer. So what should someone be looking for when they do go to the breeder and start to pick out their dogs?
That's a great question. I think most people really don't have a clue And
you're right about that.
It's like the first dog that comes to him, that's my pup.
Yeah.
He picked me out.
Cute.
Woo, he picked me out.
It's
It's
jumping on me. I like
and often that's going to be the most dominant pup in the bunch, which is going to be a really difficult dog for most people to handle. And or they pick the runt, which can also be challenging. And so what I like to do is find a dog that's somewhere kind of in the middle of the pack in terms of kind of managing itself within that pack order, because puppies, a litter of pups will establish a pack order within that litter, and you can observe kind of how they interact with each other. So I don't want one that's the most dominant one, and I don't want one that's the most docile one. I want somewhere in the middle. And then above and beyond that, I want to see how they react to me as a human being, and are they going to pay attention to me? And I'll bring out a wing or a frozen duck. Often I'll tie a little string onto it, and I'll throw it in the middle of the pack of pups, and I'll just start dragging it. And I like to see which ones have the prey drive early. And if I can see ones that definitely have that from the early start, and then I'll kind of separate them out and see if they'll go back with the group of pups or if they'll kind of want to stay with me and enjoy whatever little game we're playing. That's more the one I want to be picking, because that gives me an idea that they're really biddable, they really are enjoying this, they have good prey drive, and they're independent enough to where they're not super needy, and they're not too dominant either. You know, they want to work with you to have that fun. And that's the pup I go for.
Okay.
So, had really good luck with that. So, and this last...
Are you a male or female type of
Both.
trainer? Okay.
I always have one yellow male, one black female, it seems like. So it always works out that way. And I try and get a pup about once every 6 years.
Okay.
Yeah, because I really do believe that dogs learn from each other. And wow, can it save an owner a lot of time and trouble to have an older dog that is finished, that can be out there really showing the young dog the ropes. And I have a little black lab named Tana that's going to be 12 years old now. And then I have a 4-year-old lab named Hunter that he's out of True Lions Just Floyd, who was top dog in the nation in 2022, had won the National Field Trial Champion, and then also in 2023 won the Canadian National Field Trial Champion. Wow. Pretty accomplished sire, and I have his pup. And that was pretty cool. But Tana on a Goose Hunt, kind of near, that Riego and Sankey area.
Mm-hmm.
We were out
over by the airport.
Yep. Some dry fields out there, rice fields, and I had a blind out there. And I took a hunter on his first goose hunt. He was 9 months old and kind of young, but already force fetched, good manners. Definitely what I would consider a started dog at that point. And he definitely paid attention to Tana. And we downed this one spec, and unfortunately it was still crippled, just broken wingtip. And I sent Tana, and then I sent Hunter after it because I wanted him to be there right with her, because I thought this is a great time for the older dog to kind of show. What was so funny was, of course, he beats her out to it, right? And this goose rears up with both wings, crook neck, and I mean, it looked pretty vicious. And he's bounced around, like a little puppy, and just like I expected. And what was great was Tana takes her time. She gets over there. She walks around behind the goose as soon as he has a distraction and just tackles the goose right in front of him. As soon as she got a hold of it, then he, felt confident. And then what was great was she let it loose and allowed him to get that goose and bring it all the way back. And at one point, you could see where he was just learning, this live thing. And even though, in force fetch, it's important that, they hold on to that and that they don't drop it. But in this instance, one of the things I wanted him to do was to build his confidence. And so as a trainer and as an owner, sometimes you have to look at, there's this standard that we all follow in terms of what the dog should do. And then there's the learning in the field that needs to happen. And I am a big advocate for building confidence in young dogs. That confidence will carry that dog through in some of the toughest situations, more than just following the rules all the time. And so what was nice was when he was coming back, that Goose kind of gave him a what for right on the neck, and he dropped it, right? Now, I didn't reprimand him for dropping it in that moment because I thought, okay, let me see what he does. And he bounced back right away and just tackled that goose and then brought it all the way into hand. I was so proud of that dog. And what a moment. From that moment forward, there wasn't a goose out there that ever intimidated me.
Oh, that's great.
That was very cool.
Like, you kind of alluded to it, but like with what we would call a field training dog, one that's going to trials and has won ribbons and stuff, more to like what we would call like a meat dog that's just a hunting dog.
Yes.
It seems like some of those, I'm not going to call them robots, but they're so particular, and they have to have like the setup field, like a CTA or CRTA, like with the bumps. Like that dog doesn't necessarily have the instinct to like go over there and follow its nose per se, because it's kind of waiting for a command.
Yeah.
Like, what do you see like the biggest things between like a field trial dog and what we would call like a true hunting dog? And there's probably some that could do both, like some of yours.
That's a really good question. And you know, I've had, as a judge, one of the things that AKC has really started to emphasize, which I do appreciate, is what we call style. And there's style points when you're judging. And style is, how much does that dog desire to like go do this work?
Yeah, that's
And
great.
You see the hard charging labs that are just like super dog leaping off the edges, and they can't get to that bird fast enough.
Yeah.
And it's phenomenal. And then you see, dogs like a poodle. I kind of liken them to a Lipizzaner stallion, the way they go out, and it's their style. And you can see they're super enthusiastic about it, and I'm not judging anything in terms of that as far as it being any less, because they have their own style, and you can see the enthusiasm. But then you see the dogs that, like as one pro trainer told me, that's a man-made dog. He was very proud of that. And I think that's more of what you're talking about.
Yeah, because I've seen it where, the dog has been finished. It's, maybe 4 or 5, and it just starts hunting.
Yes.
And you're like, petting the dog, whatever, like, it could care less that it's even there.
Exactly.
There's like no drive, or it does bring a duck back to you. It's kind of sitting there, where my dog is just like, I'm ready. Tail's wagging. Where's the next bird? Where some of these are just like, I don't know if it's just they've been trained out of it, but like it just seems the drive is just not there.
And I couldn't agree with you more. And I often, and that's why AKC has made style points such a big deal, because unfortunately, our training methods have gotten so good, and with the use of electronic collars, we can have, as one trainer said, man-made dogs. They are robots.
Right.
And, and I really it bothers me so much to see that, because you know what? Not everyone needs a great hunting dog. They need a nice family dog, and those dogs are phenomenal family dogs.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But when you try and make that dog, do the work of hunting, and it doesn't really enjoy it, it's only doing it because it's been forced to do it, I have a problem with that. Because if you put a title on that dog that way, and a judge passes that dog to get that title, somebody's going to come along and think they're buying pups that are really good hunting lines.
Yeah.
And what I tell people is, number one, you can't make up in training what you don't get in genes. Buy the best genes you can buy. Make sure that you look at that pedigree and see some hunting titles on dogs that you're buying to hunt with.
So what are the differences between like the hunting titles and
that's always
the,
super confusing.
the other? I know there's just lots of varied different titles, ribbons, AKC, Master Hunter,
right?
Whatever it is. What are the different types of awards and competitions?
There's good citizenships awards, there's obedience awards, things like that. And you'll see a lot, certainly within the different breeds, like golden retrievers have like a whole set of different awards or titles that they get often. And it's for, dogs that are very obedient, well-trained, can handle basic kind of things. When we get into the field trial and the hunt test, so an FC, AFC, that you're going to see after dog's AKC registered name, or you're going to see a JH, an SH, or an MH, which is junior hunter, senior hunter, or master hunter, that's hunt test world. And when I was in high school, the field trials were more like hunt tests are today. Field trial work today, you're talking 400-yard blinds at times during the test. Now, at times when we're hunting, we might need that, but it's one of those things where most of our hunting should be within distances of like 100 yards, 150.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I see happen is people will get like, a good citizen title or an AKC title on a dog. And they say, well, it's a titled dog, but it's not a hunt test title or it's not a field trial title. It doesn't tell us anything about the prey drive or that instinct to hunt. And there's a lot to be said for that. And a really well-bred hunting dog will teach their owner more about hunting than that owner will ever teach it about hunting. I hear all these people, I taught my dog to hunt. I said, okay.
So you're talking about field trial, and they could do technically, 400-yard blind retrieves. So what's the main difference between a field trial and a hunt test?
So one of the differences, which I kind of think is interesting, is a field trial, you are competing against the other entrants in that field trial.
Gotcha. Me versus Jeff and his
Absolutely. Dog. So you're kind of not hoping they'll do well. You know what I mean? And people kind of like to do it their way, and they have a certain way of doing things. And it's very competitive, and that's great. If you're into that, good for you. It's great. For me personally, I'm more about, I want to see excellent hunting dogs out there, and I want to see owners and dogs have that kind of teamwork that it really takes to have that dog be the best conservation tool you can have out in the field. And the hunt test world is about a standard. So in a junior hunt test, there's a standard that the dog has to meet. In a senior hunt test, there's a standard that that dog has to meet. And the same with the master. And then you have the master nationals, which, after you pass 6 master hunt tests in 1 year.
Oh, wow.
Now, a master hunt test, by the way, takes 2 full days to run. So
that's some time devotion.
That is major time devotion. And a lot of these hunt tests are not really local to where any of us live. Like, you're having to drive all over. And I had to go to other states even to get 6 in 1 year. It's a huge undertaking. And you're figuring a day there, a day back, 2 days, that you're there doing the test. That's a 4-day commitment almost every time you go.
Once you're there, how long does your dog run for? Like, let's say, is it like multiple times in a day, or is like you got 15 minutes to do X, Y, and Z? I mean, what's the
You hope
protocol?
your dog's going to run multiple times a day. one of the things that I do, like right now with my dog Hunter, I just put him into a couple of senior hunt tests at one of my dog training clients. I was going with him to run his dog, and he's like, I got to see you run your dog. And, I'm at a point in my life where I don't necessarily need the ribbons or anything, but he offered to sponsor me, and I was like, okay, cool, let's do it. So we slammed these 2 senior hunt tests back to back. There was one on Saturday and one on Sunday in Denverton and Fairfield area. And what you can do is put your dog into a master hunt test and then also run them in seniors as well. And so like the next time I probably enter Hunter, I'm going to probably go for the master hunt test and then also do 2 seniors that same weekend, try and finish off his senior title, and then also get 1 leg towards a masters.
Gotcha.
And so that's kind of how that works. But the masters, you'll typically have 30 to 60 dogs in a masters. And there's a land series, a water series, and then a land water series. And in those series, you're going to have 3 marks. You're going to have a single blind, a double blind. You're going to have a diversion shot. You may have diversion birds, where as your dog is coming back with one of the marks, another duck is thrown and shot, and it drops like within 10 yards of your dog. And your dog cannot switch.
It'd be hard for my dog.
My dog would not be okay with that.
And one of the things that I see happen a lot is when people get into this hunt test world, especially on blind retrieves, they make the mistake of thinking that all the dog has to do is get that bird. Mm-hmm. That is not what a blind retrieve is about. A blind retrieve is about the working relationship between you and your dog. And your dog should sit on that whistle one time when you blow it. It should be a very crisp turn around, sit, look at you. It should be a nice square facing you. And then you're giving the casting left, right, back. After enough time working with your dog, you can start giving angled casts, which is pretty awesome. Angled in as well, which is really cool. And that dog and you should be working 100% together. And a lot of times what they'll do, like in a master test, they'll fire off the 3 or 4 marks, right? And a lot of times they'll either have you run a blind right after they fire the marks, and then you come back and run your marks, or they'll have you do the marks, and then the blinds are under the arc of that mark, and your dog has to literally run past where it just picked up a bird and not go anywhere near it. If they go to the area of the fall, they're out.
Wow.
So that is true handling. And in all those tests, if people don't know this, there's no collars. You can't have any training equipment on your dogs in those tests.
Just a whistle.
It's just a whistle. And you can't even wear like a training belt or have anything visible that is a training piece of equipment because as judges, we don't want to see people intimidating their dogs. And I do see it where people will have all their whistles and everything, and they normally carry their transmitter right on their chest, and the dog starts to hesitate, and you see the guy reach for his chest, and the dog's, oh, I'm paying attention now, because they know.
Yeah.
But it's an amazing thing, and what I love to see are the dogs that do it so enthusiastically. Like I was mentioning Karen Waltman. I bought this pup from her. She wasn't sure she was going to sell me this pup, and he was a pup that was what we called a double kick grand dog. Kick was her best dog, one of her best dogs that she ever trained and ran. And this dog was related to it. And he ended up being like the spitting image of Kick. She sent me pictures of Kick, and I compared the two of them. It was unbelievable. They could have been twins. And anyway, so she said, look, I don't know if I'm selling that puppy. And she saw in it exactly what I saw in it, too. Yeah. And anyway, she agreed to sell him to me, but she had me sign an agreement to put a title on this dog.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, man, I don't know about this. She's the one that introduced me to the whole hunt test world and everything else. And she, like an excellent breeder / trainer, she worked with me for like a year and a half, helping me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I just come up, and because it was her pup, and, it was one of those things where I bought it from her, and she wanted it to do well, and she could see my enthusiasm for it, and then I had some talent for it. And she was very generous with her time, which was amazing. And anyway, that's my camo that went on to the Master Nationals in 2010. And that was a pretty amazing experience. And it was through that then I joined Marin Retriever Club. And I do recommend that if anyone's really into doing some, hunting with their dog or dog training or wants to get involved in like the hunt test world or the field trial world, join a good club.
Yeah, is there like a mentor program? I mean, like for myself, I would love to get some additional training with my dog, but it probably would be like too intimidated because I don't have any plans to go do any of the trials or any of that. Someone that just wants to make their hunting dog better, is that a good starting point?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. You can join these retriever clubs and never run your dog in a hunt test competition. But you will be meeting other people who are real dog enthusiasts who spend a lot of time preparing their dogs for these things. And all of the skills, much like you were asking about the difference between, a test dog and like a dog for the field, just a hunting dog, all of the skills that they would learn, especially in a hunt test world, is everything you would want your dog in the field to be able to do. And, a lot of people get on me about, well, why do you do lining drills? You're going to just teach your dog to run a straight line all the time? Like, what's that about? Well, I have hunted ponds where they had a barbed wire fence on one side of the pond, and, a bird fell at the end of that just on the property we're hunting. Now, the natural instinct of a hunting dog is you're going to run up on that land, you're going to run through that barbed wire fence and go around and run and go get that. Whereas a dog that has been trained to hold a line, to a mark, that dog paralleled that shoreline all the way down, got up on the land, got that duck, and came right back in. And we never had to worry about it getting hurt on that barbed wire fence. And the handling, with blind work and things like that, the number of times I've been out in the field at a public refuge and, we're all hunting, there's 3 of us hunting together, we're dropping multiple birds, and there's some birds that the dog obviously didn't see. And public hunting, you've got big tule patches, lots of things that would interfere with them being able to mark that. Being able to handle that dog to that mark is just incredible. We had last year, a buddy of mine got us into Little Dry Creek, and we were on one of the floating blinds. It was a handicap blind with him. And, he wasn't able to hunt unless somebody goes with him. And so I had my dog Hunter with me, and it was a really good day, 45-mile-an-hour north winds, rain. It was just, the birds were all in. We were just hammering birds. And I hit this one wood duck, and this thing sailed. And the dog never saw it. My buddy on the end of the blind never saw it. It was just me and the other guy who actually saw it. And after the dog retrieved the other two birds that were down, I set him. And it was a 300-yard blind retrieve through the marsh off of a floating blind in those kind of conditions. And it was so amazing to get him to,
impressive, yeah,
stop, tread water, take my cast. I took him 3 handles to get 300 yards through all. Because, of course, when he sees me sending him to a tule patch, he's a seasoned hunting dog.
Yeah,
he's like,
going.
It's going to be in that tule patch. Nope, not that one, dog. Keep going back. And he kept holding the line. And then when I got him finally back there, I intentionally angled him slightly downwind of where I saw that bird go. He went back there. We back there for like 3 minutes. Comes out with the wood duck, swam all the way back. It was awesome. So those are the moments of triumph where you go, yeah, I got a working team here. This is just awesome. And when you have experiences like that, those are the things you remember about your hunts.
Yeah,
is that teamwork between you and your dogs.
I know you talked about like teamwork and relationships with your dog.
Yeah.
Can you still establish those relationships if you go buy, and we'll kind of talk about a started and a finished dog, but say you buy that 3-year-old field trial washout dog. Are you still able to establish that bond with that dog even though you didn't get it as a puppy?
I believe you absolutely can. Mm-hmm. And I say that to you after having my wife and I volunteered with the Central California Labrador Retriever Rescue Club for 3 years. And we took in 15 rescue dogs during that time. And I trained them, and some of them, like we had one that was 9 years old, Buster, that came to us. And he was 9 years old, had no training, and these kind of things. And I ended up working with that dog and having my wife work with that dog, and we trained it and got it certified as an animal-assisted therapy dog. And we ended up keeping that older dog because it was really hard to adopt that one out. But all of those other dogs I trained through basic obedience. I always did field work with them because being retrievers, they love to retrieve, and it was great. And you could really see that bond was building.
Okay. That's good to know.
You really can. So I do certainly encourage people to start their own pup because there's so much that you learn about your dog and that your dog learns about you that comes from just the time. And it also helps you appreciate, I think, how far your dog has come if you're the one who actually did the training. And that's a special feeling.
Yeah.
And how early should you start in like the duration? So like, let's say you just got a pup, you're working on, let's say, call it sitting.
Yeah.
How long should you do that? Because you don't want to burn the dog out either.
Great question.
Is it 10 minutes a day, 15 minutes?
So I like to start pups about 3 months old is when I start really kind of, getting all that basic obedience and start doing just play retrieves. When you get that young dog, you got to understand that for a puppy, everything is play. And learning should be play. This is not the time where you hold them back and you throw something and you make them wait. No, do not do that to your puppy. You really want to start I like about 3 months old, and I'll use a lot of treats. I definitely think treats make a huge difference. Bribing puppies just like you bribe kids, it works. And they love it. And what happens is you're conditioning them to learn to love the work. And so pairing that reward with, the command really reinforces that pup's going to want to do it. It's basic behavioral modification. So the early training, we want to go for a young dog like 3 months old, not more than 5 minutes at a time. And I know that doesn't seem like a long time, but to a puppy, they have the attention span of a gnat. And 5 minutes is great, but do it multiple times a day.
Okay.
And I also encourage people to, when you first bring a pup home, one of the big mistakes I see people make is they want to put it in an outside kennel. And they're like, oh, it'll stop whining, it'll stop crying, and things like that. Well, if you want to build in separation anxiety in your dog, go put it in a kennel at 3 months old, outside. Don't do that. Instead, when you bring the pup home, be prepared to have like a medium or small size kennel for the puppy, towel in there and everything, and have that kennel be on the foot of your bed, up on the foot of your bed with that puppy, for a couple of reasons. Puppies can't hold it all night long. They need you to let them out, okay? And they will be very destructive if they can't see you and feel like they're a part of some pack. They've just been removed from their pack, and they do get separation anxiety. And so the best thing you can do is get that pup in a small kennel to start out with, have them sleep with you up on the foot of the bed in that kennel. It's amazing how quickly they start to feel secure in the kennel. And within a week, that kennel's on the floor near where you guys are. They start to love being in that kennel. They know you're right there. You don't have the crying and the whining. But when you do hear it, you know it's time to get up and let them outside.
Yeah.
And do that right away. And never let a pup out of a kennel when you can't watch it. Always keep your eye on that thing. Take it outside immediately. Start using a command to teach the dog to go to the bathroom on command. Like get busy, go potty, go pee, whatever you want to use. And as soon as it starts to do that, use that command over and over and over again, and then praise the pup, then bring it inside. Know that anytime you're going to feed or give that pup water, within 15 minutes, you better get it outside. It's going to have to go.
Yeah.
And, people complain about, oh, it makes all these accidents. Well, it's a baby, it's a puppy. And it doesn't know to hold it. How would it? And so it's on the owner, the handler, to know, I got to get this pup outside. Make sure he airs before I bring him in, before we have some fun. And then you're going to find that within a very short amount of time, literally with Hunter, I can count on one hand the number of accidents we had until he was a year old.
Wow.
That is amazing. But I've been at it long enough to know, like, I know they have to have these things. And consistency is 100% the key to dog training, being consistent. So short time frames, 5 minutes at a time to start out with the puppies. When they start getting 4 or 5 months old, maybe 10, 15 minutes. Until they're about 5 months, they're going to lose their teeth. So you want to be aware of that. When they start teething, don't throw a lot of bumpers for them. It's painful for them to pick it up when that tooth starts to crack off and they're bleeding. And so be aware of that. During that time, maybe back off a little bit on the retrieving. So many people want to get their dog retrieving immediately. And what I would say to you is the most important thing you can instill in a young pup is the enjoyment of the prey drive. So I take like a wing and I'll tie it on with some fishing line, and I will tease the hell out of that puppy in my back area and have him chase it. Once in a while, I'll let him get it, and then I'll let him carry it around. And if he starts to chew on it, I take it away. But I encourage the heck out of him. And it's he starts to associate the game with me and that prey drive. And I just build and build on that. And if you can, get some shackled pigeons in a little cage or something and have that pup just stare at him. Oh, my God. And the prey drive just builds and builds. And it's there. You just need to, build on those strengths that are already there. And short time frames, make it fun. 15, 20 minutes once they start getting a little older. When you get to about 6 to 9 months is when I usually like to start the force fetch on a pup, depending on the pup.
Yeah, I know that's a hot topic because people don't like to do that themselves because they fear they're going to break the relationship with their dog. So what's your thought on that?
I think that if you don't have the time to do it and see it through, and I often tell people, plan on 5 to 6 weeks. Now, I've seen dogs get through it in 3 weeks and be phenomenal. But I've also seen dogs that took 3 months, which is too long. And that was because of the timing. And the person did not have the time. And they didn't see it through. And so if you can't be consistent, if you don't have that time, if you have too much anxiety about doing that yourself, have a pro trainer do that. Have them work with you. Because timing is everything. And you really can be too heavy-handed. And that's what I see happen with the force fetch is people think force. I'm going to make them do it. Force fetch is about using, more consistency and holding the dog more accountable to doing each of the steps from the hold, which you can start in the living room of your house while you're watching TV, after you've got basic obedience of sit, stay, and then hold. And you just put the little bumper in their mouth, hold, and you have them hold it for, start off 2 seconds. Good, give, Get all the mechanics down before you put them on the bench. Then when you put them up on the table, on the force fetch table, they're already familiar with hold and what this is about. And I like using like a piece of PVC pipe with a little bit of duct tape around it, something small. They generally have small mouths. They aren't going to handle a 6-inch big bumper and all this stuff, Don't do that to them right off the bat. And then we do a lot of, I do use the ear pinch, and that tends to work really well. I'll put a D-ring collar on them. I'll have a cable stretched with the D-ring collar attached so they can't jump off the table. And, initially, some of that's going to be just getting used to the table and kind of fighting it. And then we want to keep the dog's attitude really good when we're force fetching. When you see your dog's ears start to droop down too much, or the tail starts to tuck, or you see any kind of indication of anxiety building, stop. Take a break. Come back to it. I'd rather you have multiple repetitions for a shorter period of time, but then get as much as you can out of that. What you're going to find is the dog won't fight you as much, and then they will start to get better and better and better at that holding the bird and then eventually reaching for the bird. And they start to, so much of the force fetch is about conditioning. You're conditioning the dog to understand how to turn the pressure off.
Yeah.
That's what that's about. And if you're fair about it, if you have that trusting relationship with that dog and you're not too heavy-handed to begin with, the dog will learn very quickly to do it and do it with enthusiasm. And, it takes a shorter amount of time if you keep a good attitude than if you try and just force them. And I can remember with Sky, I did very old-fashioned force fetch with the leather glove, and I had him tied to the door of my garage, and he was a big dog. He was a 92-pound yellow lab, and he was about 8 months old when I did force fetch with him. And man, he let me know he wasn't happy about that sometimes. And I learned that you got to stick your finger down there and make him, gag so you get your hand back. But I learned that, being too heavy-handed is not the answer.
Yeah.
And I force fetched a lot of different dogs over the years. And what I found was that I had so much more success with shortening the time, but being very consistent about the level of, training and performance that I wanted. And I always ended it on success. Always ended on success. And then what you'll find is the time becomes longer and longer. Your dog starts to perform better. They get really enthusiastic. You show them that bumper. They can't wait to grab it, You get it to where you're laying it on the table. And I do use the dowels with the 2 wooden ends and a thin center when I'm starting to teach them to pick it up off the table themselves. It makes that whole thing a little easier for them. And then eventually I can lay anything on the table, fetch, and it's boom, 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 boom. And I use lots of praise. And then before I take them off the bench, I start the collar conditioning. And people don't understand how to use collars. They think it's a punishment. I got a remote control dog. I bought a new collar. No, that's not what that's for. A collar should be simply a correction, not a punishment. Mm-hmm. If you hunt a refuge, you hear all the dogs being punished.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. I'm like, geez, lay off that poor dog. But they never collar condition the dog, And so collar conditioning, before you pull them off that bench, you do all of the basic obedience, you do all the force fetch stuff with the collar instead of the ear pinch at that point. And the dog totally starts to understand the collar is the correction. And then you can start getting it to where that collar works perfectly. You take them off the bench at that point, and we do very short lessons. I do walking drills where I'll put 6 bumpers in a line about 2 or 3 feet apart, and I walk with the dog at heel, and I have that dog fetch up each bumper as we walk. Sit, and I'll make them heel around in a circle, come back, get on line with that fetch, boom. And it becomes a true command. Your dog is understanding any correction you would do with the collar at that point. And the other thing I tell people is, look, when you're doing that process, don't be afraid if you really need to turn the stimulus up a bit to get the dog to truly perform, because the mistake a lot of people make when they're afraid of this equipment and afraid of doing force is they never use enough force to really get the dog to respect it. And so then what happens is it's kind of like a sled dog that learns to pull harder and harder and harder. And by the time they finally do get the dog to do it, they're up to like 100 on that collar, and it's ridiculous. You know, it should never get to that point. So knowing when to turn it up to reinforce it in a way that helps the dog really understand it and really be conditioned to it. And then, like, normally when I'm training, I'm like at a 25 with my 4-year-old, who is a hard charging dog. And I can hold a 25 in my neck all day long. It's no problem. It is not painful. It is, again, it's not a punishment. It is simply a correction, but you've got to do the conditioning first, which, you know, mirrors perfectly with a lot of the kind of things that I do as a child therapist when I'm helping parents learn to be very consistent with their kids, holding them accountable in a way that no matter which parent is at home, the kid gets the same message and same level of accountability. And then they stop challenging it because they're going to be very consistent in terms of how that's reinforced. Once you have that down, the dog really starts to see you as the person that sets them up for success. And each time that dog is able to get to that blind retrieve or find that bird that it didn't see, it's a reward for that teamwork.
Yeah, I think the hardest thing for a lot of folks out there is the consistency, exactly like you said, because you know, everybody wants a dog that performs well, and they go and get a puppy and they think, oh, I'm going to have all this time. I got this job that allows me to take this dog to work. Even me, like I thought the same thing. I took my dog to a trainer because I didn't have the time I thought I did. And I personally don't have the drive to go every single day, multiple times a day. And I know guys that do, but the majority of the people don't, but they want their dog to turn into the dog that it would be if they did give that time.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And that's one of the reasons why, you know, even though, you know, I have people come to my place, my whole deal with the training that I do is I'm training the trainer. I use my therapy skills. I use my people skills, because what I know is that 90% of dog training is training the trainer. Now, not all of us have the time or the desire to be the trainer. Mm-hmm. And I so appreciate it when people come to that realization. And I'll often set up homework for them that kind of helps them come to that realization a little sooner. And then we get their dog through force fetch with a professional trainer. And then they come to me for like preseason or during the season or after the season kind of work.
Yeah.
And then they really enjoy their dogs, but they themselves are also learning. And I appreciate when people are realistic about what they can and can't do, because what really is sad for me, having volunteered with Central California Lab Rescue, are all these wonderful dogs that never had a chance because the people who got them, who thought they were going to be able to do it themselves, never did. And then they end up with Marley dogs, much like the book or the movie. And I go, it's not the dog's fault. And my clients always hate it when I say it's never the dog.
Yeah, it's true.
But it's true.
The dog's a reflection of the trainer.
Absolutely. You guys are a team, you know?
Yeah.
And that's the way it should be. And it's the coolest thing when you get that teamwork.
Like with someone with a super busy schedule, what are the things that someone could do just a short amount of time each day to get their dog ready for, you know, waterfowl season? And on the other side of that is like, how early is too early to get a new dog into the field? Because I've seen it where there's like, you know, 3-month-old dogs or whatever, and you're
like, I brought my puppy out.
Exactly.
It can go really bad the opposite way, or potentially it works out. But, you know, sometimes when you see that, you're just like, oh, ouch.
Yeah, that's a recipe for creating a gun-shy dog.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because little puppy ears can't take a 12-gauge blast right next to them. That's never okay. You know, you wouldn't do that with a little kid,
Right.
and you wouldn't do it with a little puppy. And the problem is, like you say, I've seen that too, especially at the refuges. The young guys are all gung ho. They love their dogs. They don't know what they're doing, and they get them out too soon. One of the things that I just want to emphasize greatly is, look, make sure you have all of your shots. 16 weeks is typically when all the shots should be done, especially for parvo, things like that. Wait another 2 weeks before you take that dog out. We live in an area where parvo is rampant, and I can't tell you the number of just heartbreaking stories where people love these puppies and they got them out too soon and they got parvo. Yeah. And the dog either died or was never the same. And so make sure all your shots and everything are good, all the vaccines are good. I really like taking a dog out as much as possible. About at right around 5 months old, I'm going to start taking the dog out on walks in the field and introducing it to, fields, water, shallow water, inch or two deep, not big ponds or lakes. Yeah. And we're going to have fun out there. I'm not going to be around guns being shot or anything like that at that age too much. If I do that, when I do introduce a pup to loud noises, I will make sure that the dog we've already got an established routine for basic obedience and retrieving a few bumpers, having some fun, right? And when I go to do that, I'll start the dog out. I'll call, a sporting clays range and say, hey, is it all right for me to bring a pup out? And I will not be anywhere close to the people shooting. I'll be out in the parking lot. Is that okay with you guys? I found that most of them are perfectly fine with that, as long as they know I'm going to keep it under control. Do have your dog on a lead and all that, and then do some basic obedience, have some fun with it out in the parking lot, quite a distance from where the guns are going off. And then as it gets more used to it and starts to associate having fun around those noises, you bring them closer and closer and closer, and eventually you'll have a dog that associates kind of that noise with excitement, like, ooh, this is good.
That makes sense.
It's really good. Fireworks are another thing, because a lot of people think, oh, I got a gun dog, I'm going to take him out with the fireworks. No. You think the 12 gauge is loud. Some of those fireworks are even louder and very startling. And so one of the things that I would do is, again, have your dog at a distance from fireworks and slowly introduce them and do all the basic obedience drills and some training. The dog is looking to you to see how to react to those loud noises and those startling things. And so the more calm and assertive you are with that dog, and the more you're focused on the work, the more the dog will focus on the work and not really mind any of the noises. So that young age, that's kind of where we want to introduce our dogs to as many different experiences or objects that they're going to experience out in the field. From about 5 months old on is what I kind of look at. And then, we'll start to introduce. I like to see a dog, that's been force-fetched, where, you have some way to control that dog at a distance, with a collar or something like that. And then I'll do quartering back and forth on a lead for upland game is a great time to introduce that. And upland game's a great game. And get somebody with like a 28 gauge or a 410 out there with you, shooting a chucker or something like that to introduce that young pup to. And when the puppy, gets that bird up, and then that gun goes off and the bird goes down, he goes to get it, you're building confidence. Mm-hmm. And at that point, the dog will start to really associate the sound of the gunshot with excitement and go get the bird. And you'll avoid creating a gun-shy dog. Too many guys take a dog out, shoot over it, and instantly scare it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that. And what are the things that someone could do that they don't have enough time? Like, is it 5 minutes a day? Is it in the living room, practicing, staying still, throwing a bumper?
Absolutely. So I highly recommend, if you're going to be hunting waterfowl, get one of the portable blinds, dog blind, and work with your dog in the living room.
I should have done that more.
It makes a huge difference. And the other thing is, when you get that blind established somewhere in the living room or wherever it is, practice sending your dog from like the kitchen to it or the back bedroom to the blind. I want that dog to learn to kennel in that blind from a distance, because ideally If you're going to really have an excellent hunting partner and you're going to save its hearing, because a lot of dogs do become deaf from being around all the gunshots, put that blind 20 yards from where you're hunting and have your dog learn to bring you the bird and then go kennel. And it dives in its blind. Couple things that does. Number one, especially for young dogs, if they should break or if you're having a problem with a dog that might break, that dog's going to be a lot safer 20 yards away.
Yeah.
And the other thing is it can see a picture of the birds falling and really mark so much better from 20 yards away than being too distracted by all the guns waving and all the guns going off and people hooping and hollering in the blind. It can really pay attention to the birds falling. It can mark so much better. So when you're preparing for the hunting season, you're going to want to do marking drills. And when I mean marking drills, I don't mean go out to an open field where the dog can see the bumper laying there. Initially in your training, you will with a puppy. After that, when you've had a little time in the field and your dog is preparing to really hunt, good marking dog only needs to see the arc of the mark. They don't need to see where it actually falls. And then you want to hold your dog accountable to remembering where that mark is rather than you always having to show it where the next bird is. And so you go from singles and you do that where I'll put the dog in a dog blind out away from me and go throw a bumper where it can't see where it actually falls, but it sees the arc of it. And then I'll send that dog remotely from the dog blind to go get it for preseason stuff. It really mimics, what you're going to be doing with the dog out in the field. And then when you start going to doubles, then you want to have a way to handle that dog on the line, right next to you, and turn the dog towards where you're going to throw that next mark. So the dog learns to turn in the direction of that. Then you go to triples and you do that. Once the dog has those doubles down and solid, that's where it comes back with the first one and it starts to line up for the second one without you even helping it. Now you're starting to build that memory. Then we do triples. This morning with my hunter, I've been training at a master level with him, and I'll throw up to 8 marks for him. And I'll use some orange bumpers with him even. And when we're marking, we generally want to use white or black and white. We're talking advanced level where I really want him to remember that and have to hunt for it when he gets out there. Then I will throw in an orange because they don't see that.
Yeah.
But I'll throw 8 marks, and literally when he comes back to my side, I don't have to say anything unless I am selecting which one I want him to pick up next, which I just say leave it, and I turn to the one I want him to pick up, and he lines up for it, and you see his head lock in, like, okay. And it's just awesome.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, with a dog with separation anxiety, how would you train that, or what would you need to do to make that dog feel comfortable being away from you? So I have a younger Chesapeake puppy, and he wants to be near me.
Yeah.
As close as possible.
Yeah, he's on my feet if I'm working, right? And if I leave the room, he knows where I'm going. He's got his eyes on me at all times. So we've been working on getting in the dog box, which is fine.
Yeah.
But at the blind, it's been a struggle getting him
to stay
in there because he wants to creep back up to where I am.
Yep.
So we've been struggling with that a little bit. Any tips?
Yeah, actually, with that, you want to practice that in the house.
Yeah.
And have like him set up in an area that you can come back to, and then just practice being away from him for just a couple minutes at a time. Come back to him. When he is calm, he's not out of his little dog blind or whatever, or he's just stayed there, or if you use a place board, because a lot of people like place boards and place, which is fine. I like the blinds because I like my dog in a blind,
Yeah.
And so I'll use a blind, but when I come back, one of the things that I always tell folks is treat them in the blind. Don't have them come out to your side or be beside you to give them the reward, because then they associate being beside you with the reward.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I want him to associate staying in that spot on a good stay and, keeping that being what he gets rewarded for. And then I'll extend the time a little longer, a little longer, a little longer. I'll do that with their food, where I'll have the dog watching me make the food and I'll set it down, and I'll walk, and I'll just wait. And the dog's looking to me, and the drool starts. Looks like a scene from Aliens. And then they'll start to shake, and they're looking at me, and they're looking at the food, and then I'll say their name and release them. What you're building into the dog is that it doesn't need to be beside you. It needs to do the command. Oh. And then it gets rewarded for doing the command. And that's a lot of repetition, being very consistent with it. And then the dog really does feel secure. And the more repetitions you do of that, the more it reassures the dog you're coming back.
Yeah.
So in child therapy, we call it object permanence. That just because mom and dad leaves the room doesn't mean that you're all alone. They're still in the house with you, and they're coming back. And because we get a lot of kids with separation anxiety.
Yeah.
And so very similar. Our dogs, same. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So we talked about kind of dogs that started from puppies. A lot of days now, people purchase a started dog or a finished dog. What is the difference when people see that online on a dog breeder? It says, hey, this is a started dog. You can buy it for X amount of money. This is a finished dog. What are they getting?
Good question. It depends on the breeder and the trainer.
Okay.
It really does. I have had all kinds of different definitions for that. I've had people claim that a started dog was a dog with basic obedience. That's a started dog. Most reputable breeders that sell hunting dogs or a dog that may end up doing some hunt tests or competition, a started dog is a dog that's already been through force fetch, has all the basic obedience down, is starting on doing multiple marks, starting on it. Not necessarily has it down pat, but can do a double at least, and may have some experience already being shot over in the field. We do want to see that. That would be considered really a started dog. You're going to get a dog that will already know whistle commands, be able to stay in the blind, be able to, follow all the basic obedience, and retrieve well, A finished dog is very different. This is a dog that is doing hand signals, blind retrieves, a dog that has much more experience in the field in actual hunting situations, may even have like a couple of legs of a title or a title on it, like a junior title, something like that. That's what I would expect for a finished dog. This dog is solid. Like, it is not going to break until you say its name when you go hunt with it. Now, I say all this, and I would say to most people, just because you may buy a finished dog does not mean that it will always act like a finished dog. Because if you, as the owner handler, don't reinforce what has been trained in this dog, it will learn very quickly what it can get away with and what it can't. And if you don't understand how to hold that dog to that level of accountability that it's been trained to, trust me, it's much like a teenager. It will get away with what it can, even though it's very well trained and finished. It will.
A lot of stuff that I've heard is like, people will pay thousands and thousands of dollars for those rockets, just, top line dogs.
Yes.
And, equate it to a Ferrari with a stick shift. And the guy that bought it's never driven a stick shift in his life before. He doesn't know how to handle it.
Exactly. They're used to the VW. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Exactly. So they may have the top of the line, but that dog's working them. They're not working the dog.
100%. Couldn't agree with you more. And that's what I see happen. And, that's where I really emphasize to people that if you're going to buy a started or a finished dog, buy one from a reputable breeder trainer that's going to interview you to see if it's really the right dog for you. If you're going to put that kind of investment in it, make sure that you get it from someone who is going to interview you and want to know who you are, and make sure they match you up with the right temperament dog.
It's a good idea.
It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and when you're looking for a dog, is it kind of, the price matches what you're getting? Because you'll see anywhere, Craigslist, whatever, like AKC Labs.
Yes.
And the person's probably never done a field test or might not even be a hunter. Yeah. How should someone navigate that? And basically, if they only have $500 to spend on a dog, what should you be looking for? Or the questions asked? And like a lot of dogs, it seems like it's like $2,500 ish.
Yeah, it's kind of the going rate.
A nice
is
dog.
$2,500 to $3,000 in California
for a puppy.
For a puppy.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Yep, that's going rate these days. And you can find the $500 dog, Craigslist or whatever. But here's the thing that I would really caution people about: make sure that you're not buying it from a puppy mill. Make sure you're not buying it from the average backyard breeder that just saw the cute dog at the dog park and said, let's make puppies and I'm going to make some money, because people do this all the time. Remember what I said about you can't make up in training what you don't get in genes? Mm-hmm. Big time. And I see it all the time. People will bring me dogs and I go, here's what we can do. And, but I can tell you, I can't train a dog to have prey drive. If it's not there, if that dog was never from a hunting lines, it's not. It's
can't teach that.
You can force it,
right?
But then you got this man-made dog that hates every minute of what you're doing.
Yep.
And that's not who you want out in the field with you. You want your hunting buddy that loves it as much as you do. So one of the things I would say is don't look at price necessarily as being the main factor. Look at, this is an investment over hopefully 12 years or more. And so get the best quality breeding you can. And that's from a reputable breeder who has done all of the hips, eyes, elbows, the Orthopedic Foundation of America, OFA rate, has a rating. Ideally, you'd love to get excellent hips, but anywhere from normal to good to excellent is fine. Not all most dogs won't get an excellent rating because that's kind of rare, but it's nice when you do get that. You want to have people who have, made sure that there are no eye problems with their dogs. So they've had some testing done for that there is no EIC, which is exercise-induced collapse. And I can remember when we first started looking at that in the hunting world, I didn't know what that was. I had a dog that was EIC affected. And I wondered we'd be out and the dog would be hunting phenomenal and everything. And all of a sudden it started wobbling and would collapse. And what I didn't realize was it could have died during any of those times where it collapsed. And we've had examples where they would just die in the field. And so making sure that, you don't have a dog that carries those kind of, inheritable problems is really important. And a reputable breeder will make sure that the lines that they're breeding to don't have any of that in it.
Yeah.
Really important. Like I said, spend the money, because when you look at how long you're going to have this animal and how much time and how much of a part of your family this animal's going to be, get the best genes you can from a reputable breeder. Try and avoid the backyard breeders or the puppy mills as much as possible. There are times when you get lucky and you find someone who actually did their homework and did everything they're supposed to as a first-time breeder. And like with my dog Hunter, I actually bought him from someone that Karen Waltman had recommended to me because she had her eye on that True Lines Just Floyd. She knew he was destined for great things. And I got lucky and got a pup before he had even gotten any of his titles. And then he ends up being top dog in the nation, and pretty amazing. So, once in a while. And that dog cost me $1,400.
Okay.
So, yeah. But during the pandemic, the prices skyrocketed. I think we're starting to see them kind of back down a little bit.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's an investment. It is. And I think if you get a dog that doesn't have the pedigree, you probably end up spending that in the long run on, surgeries or whatever it may be.
TPLO surgery.
Yeah.
5,000 to 7,000 now for one leg.
Oh my goodness.
And 52% of them tear the other leg within 2 years of having the surgery because that leg's strong and now the other leg tears. And again, that's genetics. You really want to buy the best genes you can. Hip dysplasia is just such a tragic kind of thing, and that's thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And this is a member of your family. It's like a child, or,
dogs,
and so
dogs aren't cheap.
People spend the money, So yeah, get a well-bred dog. It makes all the difference in the world. One of the ththings that you asked about was, well, how does someone who's busy and working and all this stuff do this? I mean, I work full time. I work a 4-10 shift, and so like yesterday was an 11.5-hour day for me. Now I'm up at 4:30 in the morning. I'm out running my dogs in the dark, and I make a point of it. And for me, number one, it helps me, get up in the morning and I see the enthusiasm in them, and it's contagious. And, it starts my day in the right way. It sets the tone for my day. And when I have that experience with them and I see how important it is that they get that exercise. If you have a working dog, it needs work. You can't just leave it at home all day. and not do anything with it. You got to work that dog every day. It really is a commitment, but it's one that will help you as well. And, I always say that, my dogs are my therapists. They really are. As unfortunately, will never be a human being that'll be that excited to see every day. So it's worth it. But yeah, and take the time. I would say most people need to spend more time on the basic obedience and less time on the retrieving. With the retrieving, it's more about getting the skills down. Like this morning, I set 3 blinds out before I took my dog out of the house. And then I threw marks, and one of the marks I threw, the arc of that mark was in line with the blind. And when I threw the marks, of course, the dog is watching me throw these marks. So I threw that mark, and then what I did is when he went to look at that mark, I told him, leave it. And he looks up at me, and I said, dead bird. You give them a prompt for what you're doing so they understand that we're not doing a mark, we're doing a dead bird. And then I re-heeled him and lined him up. And I got to make sure, years ago I saw a seminar by Andy Attar, who was an excellent field trial trainer and handler, very successful man. And he has this acronym, SHIA, and it stands for spine, head, eyes, and attitude. And I have never forgotten that. And it has helped me tremendously in lining up a dog for a blind retrieve. I take my hand and I'll run it from the base of their tail up their spine in a very natural swing, and I'll look where my hand is pointing. If it is not pointing at that blind, I need to line that dog up to where the spine is pointing at that. Yeah. And then I look at its eyes. Are his eyes looking? Now, if, in this case, if my dog's eyes were looking at that mark, I would not send him. We've done this so many times now that when I looked at him, with him, I don't even need to do I don't have to go through all the motion. And then the last one is you look at the spine, the head, is the head pointed exactly the way, or is it looking around? If the head's looking around, don't send him. Make sure you got that locked in. The eyes pointing that way, that's locked in. And then the attitude, are the ears up or are they down in sort of a I'm being punished mode? That attitude is huge. And if you can get all that, and timing is everything with that, because some dogs can only take so long for you to wait to send them. And if you miss that moment when their attitude is good, you're probably not going to be very successful on that run. And so you got to know your dog. And I get there and I go, okay, there it is. Line him up. I sent him. He ran right past that mark, went right to the blind, picked up the blind, came right back. The next bird I sent him on was that mark. And then we picked up the other marks and the other blinds. And it's so awesome to see that. But so that whole thing, my whole training this morning literally took me 25 minutes.
Yeah, it's nothing in the scheme of
things. I think that's what people have trouble with, is just like, I got to wake up, I got to take my dog, and then it's just 15 minutes, and then I got to go back. And it's like that motivation for a lot of people isn't there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that. I mean, I'll get in a good rhythm of like, yeah, we're doing it for a couple of weeks, and then life happens, and you get off the horse, and you're like, darn it, we need to get back into it. Because like you said, it's more of a routine for yourself too.
It is.
And getting in with it. Because I was doing that for a while this summer, and then just kids' school starting, work, whatever, you just haven't got back on it. But yeah, need to. Yeah.
CWA Retriever Club, you and me.
There you go. But awesome.
Now we could talk about this stuff forever, but how could someone get a hold of you? Are you taking new clients?
I do. I only take on a few at a time, and I will tell people, because I am a hunter and I work full time, and then I do the dog training. We're going into dove season, and it's archery deer season starting this weekend. So yeah, I'm not going to have a lot of time to be tuning up people's dogs for duck season at this point. I'd be looking more to take people on in the spring.
Okay.
At this point, and that's when I'd be looking on taking on some new people. But they can get a hold of me, B&B Dog Training, Brendan Hinkle. Put out my number, 916-952-2148, and my email is skymbh@aol.com. And feel free to give me a ring or send me an email, and we can look.
Awesome. Well, Brendan, I appreciate you joining us today. I learned a lot, some do's and don'ts that I need to be working on, but I want to say thank you, Carson.
Yeah, I want to say thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
It's going to help a lot of people.
Awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Save It for the Blind podcast. You can find our podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.